through home to take a bunch of early meetings. Then I had to go to Cambridge for a meeting. Then I came here for this. And at the end of the day, we'd be like,
Yeah, 100%. I'm ready for that now. We should have wine right now.
Well, hello, everyone. If you were just in my last session, welcome back. If not, welcome. Thank you all for joining us at the 9th annual Startup Boston Week.
woohoo!
Woohoo! Yes!
Yeah.
I honestly can't believe that it is our last day of my favorite week of the year. The mission with this conference is simple: to bring together the entire startup community across every industry, department, and funding stage. Startup Boston exists to connect, educate, and celebrate this ecosystem while serving as a trusted, unbiased guide to the best resources that can help you start and scale your startup or your team. My name is Elena Lobianco. I'm a consultant with TriNet, where we help startups and small businesses scale confidently, compliantly, and build out their HR infrastructure. I will be your hostess. Before we dive in, I do want to give a huge thank you to Suffolk University for hosting us. Suffolk has generously partnered with us for the last 3 years, providing this space in kind because of their deep commitment to the startup community. If you're interested in exploring entrepreneurship, they do offer a variety of programs and opportunities, and they have a table right out there in the vendor hall. So be sure to stop by and learn how they can support your journey or how you may be able to support their entrepreneurial students as well. We have a fabulous panel hosted by the wonderful Trisha, More Than Money, Turning Portfolio Support into a Competitive Edge. Thank you again so much for attending Startup Boston Week. I hope you enjoyed the session. Kick it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. And thank you all for joining us in person and then at home and virtually. I see a lot of familiar faces, so welcome. We're going to just get it kicked off right now with a quick intro for everybody. So you can just kind of go down the line. So can you describe your organization and introduce yourself and share how your firm is different from a traditional VC firm?
Hi, my name is Steve Bernard. I work at Techstars. So we are a global accelerator program. So what that really means is, we give you a little bit money and then you go through a 3-month program with a bunch of, programming, but also mentorship. And we really kind of take a hands-on approach and like to think we're, almost a co-founder in terms of support for 3 months and then beyond that to kind of help you really get going.
Hey everyone, my name is Brandon Oliver. I'm a principal with BankTech Ventures, and I'm a big fan of Startup Boston Week, big fan of Stephanie, Lily, and the entire team. BankTech Ventures is a VC fund on paper, but in reality it's more of an R&D extension for every community bank out there in the market. These banks don't really have an innovation arm oftentimes. They don't have the JP Morgan resources, so they leverage a firm like us to go out into the fintech landscape in particular to find bank enabling solutions that these banks can leverage as a particular vendor in their tech stack. So these banks become both a partner and potential customer of the same solutions themselves, and it kind of generates its own ROI for the fund.
Great. My name is Beth Porter, and I'm the head of the studio at C10 Labs, and C10 is both a fund and a venture studio. And what that means is that we co-build with, through formal programming and just, raw build from scratch, from the bottom up, venture development side by side with founders. And our main focus is applied AI, and that means applied across all domains of venture development, whether it's the core functionality or platform or solution that's going out into the marketplace, or the venture itself, for which there are many, many, many AI enablements now, all worthy of critical examination, I'll simply say, but nonetheless, that is how venture is being built, and that's what we really promote and help our teams do together with our large expert network. So side-by-side build is a big part of what we do in the incubator and in the build track program.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you all. And I'm Trisha Pizzetto. I'm the program manager at Venture Cafe Cambridge, which is the largest weekly tech networking event in New England. We're industry agnostic, and we are available every Thursday night from 4:30 to 8. So come on down. All right. I also want to thank Stephanie as well. We're huge fans of Startup Boston and Startup Boston Week. So Thank you again for Stephanie for hosting us. So my second question now is for Brandon. What does it mean to be a strategic investor, and how is your portfolio support different from the VCs? Can you go a little further?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last decade alone, the number of VC firms out there in the United States it's in the thousands, right? There's so many opportunity for any founder to find any VC out there. And all these VCs and private equity firms need to deploy capital. There's a time horizon to their investment strategy with their limited partner investors themselves. The issue is that they're hard to differentiate themselves from the rest, right? It's very hard for them to say, hey, we can write you a check. Well, yeah, so can the guy down the street. And that's actually something that any of the founders in the room, you can be a little bit more critical to who you want to partner with from an investment standpoint. And one of the things that BankTech does in particular, because it's community banks that are the investors in our vehicle, and the companies that we're looking for are actively trying to sell their wares into community banks, we become a sales channel for them. Right? We are vetting these companies as if we are a bank from a vendor due diligence standpoint, which from the federal level down is they are required to do a deep vetting, not only of the entrepreneur and the team, but also the solution to make sure it works in our financial service sector here. So if we do that work up front and are saying to any bank we talk to, listen, we know you're struggling with digital account opening or something along those lines. We've vetted 30 other providers. Here's our top 3. Now, we may make an investment in one of those 3. We may never make an investment in one of those 3. But the bank is now ready to move forward much faster with any of those 3 vendors because we've done that upfront work for them, taking care of about 60 or 70% of that upfront work. So any VC you're talking to, whether it's go-to-market strategy, pricing strategy, they have a Rolodex of tech entrepreneurs. You can find your co-founder or CTO or something along those lines. You can demand more of them, and you should, candidly, because this is a long-term relationship you're going to have with them, at least 10 years on average, maybe a little less.
Don't just take money.
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. So next question is for Beth. At C10 Labs, you have a venture studio, among other things, where startups can come and work in person. So what value do startups get by working in a VC studio environment?
So many. So part of what we do is that we always run our programs in a cohort. And, I think, Techstars obviously has been doing this for many, many years, so we're not reinventing things there. But the value of them coming together, not just with each other, but with us, is that we're really trying to surround people with as much expertise as humanly possible. And in our case, a lot of the expertise that we're providing is in the most fast-moving domains of technical development on the planet right now, which is all in generative AI. And so we don't pretend to know all that stuff ourselves, absolutely not. But we can convene people who are part of the larger ecosystem in Boston, which is rich with talent, as you all know, and bring them into our space and then have them work with our teams. But the in-person programming is meant to really help cement those relationships and not just have it be transactional, but really be human, personal, and connective, so that people can feel like, oh, I met that person, I worked side by side with them, we did a hackathon together, we built code for my startup together. I want to have an ongoing, sort of relationship with them as I build my venture. I know who I can have as trusted advisors, and I think it sounds very similar to what these guys are doing with their banks, right? The banks have to trust them, and banks are not trusting. Banks have to trust them and make sure that those those startups really know what they're doing and can be put inside of a very sensitive data domain.
Yeah. And so my next question is for Steve. So Techstars is one of the largest accelerators in the world. Can you tell us a little bit more about your offerings and how you work with others in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so our offerings, like I said, it's really just bringing the network together, and that's kind of the idea behind Techstars or any real accelerator or venture studio. It takes a village, and so I'm not an expert in everything, and no one is, and it's the idea that let's get everyone around the table, and whether that's introductions, it's capital, it's expertise in a very niche area. That's really the value, as well as, getting the cohort together. And we do offer money, but it's, a drop in the bucket relative to, traditional VC funds. And it's really not about the money. It's about the mentorship, the network, And then there's a second part to that question.
Yeah, how do you work with others in the ecosystem?
Right. That's my favorite part about Techstars or just being an accelerator is there's really no one we can't work with. And so constantly, like, we work with C10 Labs and we'll send them folks that, we've worked with and invested in and vice versa. Or if it's not a fit for us, we're like, you need real great AI, you should go to see them. Not that we don't have that, but just, there's no one we can't work with, especially because we're not leading rounds, we're not pricing the rounds. And so a big part of my job personally is also making sure you can get the VC funding. So working with these VC firms, knowing what they want and are looking for in deal flow. And so it's nice that we can all work together. Especially, I'm also a mentor at Mass Challenge, which is a great organization. And so there's, you can really just work together. And I think the more that you help other folks and other firms with, asking for nothing back, it comes back around and we can all, really make this ecosystem, Boston, a real hub.
I will say the value of all these different accelerators in the New England area, there is definitely a reputational boost every single time a company has gone through some of these accelerators, especially if they've gone through multiple,
Yeah.
because it's a very small community. And if I've seen that you've gone through 3 or 4 of the top accelerators in New England alone, or some of the other ones around the country, I'm going to pay attention more, for sure.
Yeah. And the more support, the better. So do as many as you can, as long as you're not taking too much dilution in equity.
Yeah.
The more the merrier, because it's just more people to help you and support.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Gaurav from Mass Challenge, who was meant to be on this panel, but he's unable to make it today. So shout out to Gaurav. So this question is for all of us, all of you. How has your model evolved over time? And what's different about your approach today compared to the early days of your operation?
It's easy for me to answer that question because we've only been in operation for 2 years. Although a shocking amount of evolution even in 2 years. So we really came in with this notion that we would spend the majority of our time and energy building companies from scratch. But what we found was that when we started running incubators and actually having groups of people come in and work with us, that we learned more by having a lot of people come to us with their ideas and methodologies, right? So we don't know how to do everything ourselves perfectly. And when an entrepreneur who has novel ideas about how they want to address problems in their domain, they're domain experts, and we're not, right? They're the ones who come in and say, hey, I've noticed this problem or this space of problems, and I have a way to solve it or to approach it. That is really valuable for us. We will take that learning and then we can expand what we can offer in terms of supporting other teams that come after them. So for us, the incubator is not incidental at all as we thought it might be at the beginning. It really is elemental to our work. And on top of that, we also have forged private-public partnerships, which we also didn't know we would be working on that, but we won a grant with Lab Central to run the AI BioHub, and that's from the Mass Tech. And so it was really exciting for us to be able to take that and learn something about how public and private organizations, nonprofit, profit, and public organizations can all work together to build value in the ecosystem. So it's been very exciting for us to work on that as well. That's an evolution.
Wow.
Stephanie's going to be upset with me because she knows I'm very candid. And but Verumica's know me well enough now that I'm very open. So most legacy industries that you guys are trying to fix are held together by duct tape. Like, let's be honest. They've had no reason to change for decades now. No one's really pushed them unless it's some major macro event that put a giant spotlight on a problem that they might have had. Financial services is a huge one. Education, government affairs, healthcare. You guys know the main culprits. I think what's been more eye-opening is the disconnect between the marketing of these institutions and the actual inner workings. The marketing's top-notch. They look like the best thing since sliced bread. But then you pull back the curtain and you see the man behind it and you realize this is a mess, right? So I think what's been eye-opening on both sides, for our IO at least, is making sure the founders know exactly what they're walking into. Know that it's going to take a long time to fix the thing you want to fix. And you have to be very, very patient, especially in these legacy industries. And if you can do that and just stay persistent, you'll be good. On the other side of it, we have noticed more of these institutions, the CEOs, their innovation teams, what have you, be more open to taking criticism. But at the same time, they need a lot of handholding. So you got to be a consultant. You do, right? I tell every startup I talk to in these main industries I just spoke of, you got to come 90 and ask them to come 10. This is not a 50-50 roadmap, and it's not a fair ask at all of any of you who are founders in the room, but it's the reality of the situation. There's like a barbell curve going on right now. Great innovative minds in this room right now, and the people, no offense, this is just a generalization, but the people who run these institutions right now, and there's a big thread between them right now. So be patient, work with them, and I know it's tough when your cash is burning like crazy, but make sure, again, to the first question, you have good backers that understand the industry as well and can work with you in that timeline.
For us, our business model is changed quite a bit since 2007, our first cohort. It was a small idea in Boulder, Colorado. It was essentially a couple friends that were angel investors and wanted to just prop up their investment with support from mentors that have been there, done that, and can open doors for them. I was talking to one of our mentors in residence today. He was in our 2009 cohort, and it used to be you get $3,000 per co-founder just for living expense. And we changed our deal terms this past cohort to $220,000 per startup. Beyond that, our actual support is grown, and now we have cohorts and locations from here to London to Tokyo, and a network that's really global. So from day one in Boulder to today as one of the largest accelerators in the world, we're constantly changing, and it's listening to the market, but really listening to the founders and making sure we're doing what's best for them in the current market, just so we can continue to support.
Yeah, incredible. Also, another question for everybody. So in today's uncertain funding environment, from VC pullback to SBIR, STTR pressures, how should startups adapt, and what roles can firms like yours and others play?
Go for it.
The market valuations on most of the startups today in different industries, I mean, it's always in flux, obviously. What we saw in 2020, 2021 during the pandemic years was very lofty valuations really across the space. And then 18 or 24 months later, those same companies came back to the table and had to do down rounds or flat rounds. They couldn't justify the valuation. They couldn't scale fast enough to justify the valuation, which left all their investors that did participate in that 2020 or 2021 round very upset. And then that signaled to the rest of the market that maybe we don't want to get involved with that company. It's not a death sentence by any means. But my point is, be reasonable in your valuation, right? Don't always just shoot for the moon for the sake because there's more money on the table, right? Because you are expected in 24 months at the very least, given most of the time it's a Series C or Series A stage, to reach that valuation, to then go after the next valuation. And if you miss the mark, it's because you set the bar too high for yourself. So that's the biggest thing. And know that the market fluctuation is going to go back and forth wherever it's going to go. Again, if you have the right partners, they're going to understand the valuation of that particular industry. So it's very unfortunate because we are still seeing, I think we're seeing a second wave of it, honestly, right now, of a bunch of companies coming down. And all the valuations or all the fundraising events you see on PitchBook are usually happy situations. The ones you don't see are the ones they don't publicize, right? The company kind of said they buried it, or they did a bridge round or something like that. You don't find that out until you start talking to the founder. So just be reasonable in your valuation expectations, that's all.
I want to pick up on something you said before, Brandon, but which is really about expect a good portion of the work that you do initially to be consultative with the companies that you would hope to partner with in the future. It's just going to have to be that way to help with, funding your early endeavors. Those partners are going to be important anyway, but don't work for free. Charge something. It used to, she's nodding like, yeah, you really got to charge. I advise an ed tech company, and she came back, she said, oh, this big university, they're so excited about something that I'm building, and blah, blah. She started typing, I said, let me ask you a really fundamental question. Are you charging them for your work? She's like, well, no, they're so important. I'm like, nope, negative, don't do that. Don't do that. Because your work is, first of all, they can afford it. Don't tell them that they can't. And second of all, you're going to help them build value. Just always remember that. They're not coming to you because it's some sort of sunk cost for them. This is value for them. Your innovative idea or approach, your team, their expertise, your ability to accelerate where they need to get in their roadmap, that's really important value for them, and they should pay for it, even if it's not a lot. And so don't do work for free. And this can really help bolster the, sort of more traditional ways that you raise money as a early stage venture.
That point actually is very, very true because before joining BankTech, I don't know if anyone remembers the DCU Innovation Center, the FinTech Innovation Center over by South Station. Yeah. So I used to run that. And that was a mission-driven nonprofit. You'd have credit unions and bank executives come down and see what was the next ideating stage company in the FinTech landscape, and they would provide their perspectives so the founders could build towards the problem and maybe find a beta customer by the end of month 12. The issue is it didn't cost the bank anything to come or the credit union to come, so you lose engagement. In this vehicle of BankTech, it's the same mission, but these banks have bought in with hard dollars, so they come back to the table at the very least to make sure they're not wasting money, right? So it keeps at the very least them engaged with you to keep them accountable, which is, I think, the number one thing you might need.
I think the first point that's super important and you made was the stories in the news, those crazy valuations, those are in the news because they're unique. They're one-off. They're not commonplace. We talk with a lot of our founders. They'll say, well, this company just raised this and they're pre-revenue or whatever. It made the news for a reason, I think is the first thing. And that's even with our companies that come out and raise really significant rounds. And I think even the best founders, the best companies we have, they all have different expectations of how easy it's going to be to raise money, but also the valuation that they can do it at. And it's never easy. So I think that's really important. And I think it's also pretty important to realize, I think a lot of founders want to raise money because that makes them feel legit to some degree. Do not give away your company if you don't need to. If there's a way to sell, to grow, to fund and keep the lights on, do that. Get 3 more customers rather than work to try and get someone to give you money and give away your company, especially early on when your valuation is low and a $10K check is taking significant equity. And I think that's also important to realize when you go to VCs for proper VC funding. Not every company should be VC scalable, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like those investors, if they give you money, they want 10, 20x return. They want you to become a unicorn. There are plenty of companies that are meant to be a $10 million, $20 million company. That's not what a VC wants. But if you own the whole thing and you sell that, it's quite a payout. Mm-hmm. However, you could alternatively have to scale to a $1 billion business and get the same payout because you've given away so much of your company. So I think just be very cognizant of giving away your money just because that makes you legitimate to some degree, because it's really silly and you don't need to do that, and you don't necessarily need venture funding if you're not going for that rocket ship valuation IPO kind of company.
And I would say this, and I'm sure you've seen it, you want founders to be engaged. If they don't have enough equity in the thing they're building, why would they keep building? And then if they walk out, now everyone is sitting there being like, well, now what? Right? And everyone loses. So I had a founder just recently. He stepped down and had someone else take his step because he only owned 7% of the company. He's like, it's not worth it for me to keep doing this. I might as well just go build my next thing. I go, yeah, I totally understand. I couldn't fault him for that.
And VCs won't invest. If you don't have enough of it, your cap table becomes uninvestable. We've had a lot of companies that we loved, but it just wouldn't make sense. They'll never be able to raise the money they need because they gave away too much too early.
So continuing with the fundraising conversation, so fundraising often gets the spotlight, as we just discussed, but how should startups balance equity raises versus other sources of funding when they think about launching?
I mean, the government, the government programs have been very fruitful for startups in this country. It's a part of how university, translation of university foundational research and new tech and new innovations gets to market is through those funding vehicles. My first company, it was 3 years on SBIR grants. It was awesome because the NSF, saw what we were doing as being, additive to a whole market of different kinds of innovation in AI and education. So we really milked that money for all it was worth until we had to give away any money or any, part of the company. And what made it so valuable, actually, the SBIR program in particular, is that they do treat you like a startup, even though you're doing research while you're, taking that money and applying it to the problem you're trying to solve. You go through all the same kinds of, programming that you might get out of a Techstars or another incubator, and they really put the customer in the center of the problem, and they teach you about venture development. And so a lot of the skills that I acquired that I now help other companies learn actually came through my support from the government and the SBIR grant program. So it is a really, it can be a way to keep you going for much longer than you imagine, especially in the earliest stages when you still don't really quite know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, obviously equity-free money is better, right? It's a no-brainer. What I tell our startups, especially the ones that are really technical in, science and research-related fields, is you can qualify for a lot of it and get millions of dollars and don't have to give away any equity. I will also say, though, once you you never can count on that money until it's in the bank. So you should be applying to every single one possible. However, as you plan that you don't get any of them. And then when you get that $1 million grant, could be 3 years later, it's bonus money. But you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But if you're not applying for those grants, you're just giving away your company for no reason. It's free money, and it's the best when you get them. So
One thing I will say about the SBIR process is that they are looking for you to have those other sources of money as well. That's not, just going there with your hand out and hoping that they'll give you some cash. You do have to have sort of evidence that either an entity, a company or something like that is willing to pay for you to do work with them, or that they're supporting your work in some way within kind, or that you have a VC who's sort of lined up, or an early stage investor, an angel investor is lined up to support you with cash. So it is, that will definitely bolster your application. It's not a requirement, but that's what they're looking for, and it makes those applications rise to the top.
Yeah, and if you know generally how much you're trying to raise, there are other instruments, right? There's safes, there's convertible notes, there's other debt instruments, we do a lot of performance warrants, which is really no cash handling at all, but if we can help you close certain banks, maybe we can earn equity as a firm. We can have like a rising tide lifts all boats type of scenario. And revenue is the best form of fundraising, candidly. So there's other alternatives to just saying, hey, I got to go raise money from VCs. The other thing is a lot of VCs might have equity thresholds. They won't invest in anything unless they can own 10% of the company or something like that. You got to be mindful of that too. So it is a big vetting process if you are going to go that route. But no, there's plenty of alternatives out there for sure, especially here in New England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So pivoting to working with your cohort, so what makes most effective check-ins with startups throughout the year, and how can startups prepare for those check-ins with VCs and accelerators?
On the VC side, like I said at the beginning, you can hold us accountable, right? If we're promising you the moon in terms of what we can bring to your company, hold us accountable to that standard, right? Otherwise, we might just move on to the next shiny object. Constant check-ins. Some companies that we work with, we have weekly check-ins with them, monthly, every quarter. It really depends on the founder and their team, where they're at in their growth. Sometimes it's an earlier stage company, it might need a little bit more help. A later stage company, less so. We do a lot of webinars with our investors as well, again, who would be the customers of these certain solutions. So it keeps the founder engaged with us as well. And then most VCs, I don't know if all of them do, but they have their usual annual summit where they bring together all their limited partner investors. It's good to have face-to-face time with those people as well. Know who kind of my boss is in a way, because they're expecting a return on the investment down the road. So there's plenty of opportunity, but it is on the upfront vetting process. Know what you're being promised and keep them accountable to that.
Yeah, I would say that we try not to make it too pedantic. I think people don't want to just do reporting for reporting's sake. It's not interesting. So we try to give people some incentive for coming back to us and being interested in what we're doing on their behalf in order to sort of compel VCs or businesses, hospitals, schools, whoever are coming to us and create events or spaces for them to get involved. So, for example, we have a very large biotech and med tech, health tech portfolio, which should be no surprise to anybody who's in the Boston area. And our job, self-created job, is to bring hospitals, medical institutions, state and federal actors to the table to consider the work that they're doing and to really put them forward as our portfolio. And then we really get to work with them to put their best foot forward and think about how they present themselves to those entities. And in the process, we learn exactly how they're thinking, what they're working on, what's next for them, why this would be an interesting proposition for that partner, and sort of make it a two-way operation, two-way street.
I think the check-ins, there's quarterlies and the annual ones where we want your financial reporting because we have to do that legally. But that's not, especially when it comes to like an incubator, accelerator program, you should be reaching out and asking for help. You know, we gave you money and we took equity, but a big part of the reason that it's worth that equity is because we've promised to help and support, and, you know, whether that's bringing experts or introducing you to VCs or whatever that, you know, engagement was that you were promised, ask for that help. I mean, I have hundreds of companies that I work with every year. If you're not reaching out, you're not top of mind. There's also companies I talk to daily, and you get as much out of these programs as you put in. But if you're not trying to be top of mind, if you're not making an effort to ask for help or just check in, you're going to be one of those portfolio companies that just kind of, it's, you know, lost until the end of the year when you have to check in. And so I think, you know, the more that you ask, the more you get, especially as these portfolios grow and you get, you know, further along. It's easy to forget, but, you know, you were promised that whenever it was that you took that money by that support system, and you're only going to get it if you ask for it.
I have a founder who calls me every single day, and she goes, "I know you have other companies, but I don't care." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair comment. All right, fair enough. How can I help you?"
Amazing. So there can't be a one-size-fits-all approach to portfolio services. So how do you tailor support based on startup stage sector and the founding team?
I think so. Definitely stage and sector, I think, is the biggest one. Just because if you're a capital-intensive hardware, you know, space tech, manufacturing, whatever it is, robotics, versus B2B SaaS, you need different things. You can scale quicker in one. The other one requires more capital. Some requires more, you know, future thought. The other one is like we need to do more R&D. So it's very, very different in the support. And that's why, you know, Techstars, while we have our generalist programs, the ones that are very specialized needs, like we have a space one, we have a water tech one. It's a very different program, and that's why, because the needs and support is very different. Yeah.
Go ahead. Please.
A lot of what we do is hands-on AI build support. And so one of the ways that we try to be responsive to our teams is that we do solutioning with them. I mean, we sit down and really talk through what are you trying to do here anyway? You know, what do you need? How is that going to be additive to the business that you're trying to serve or the problem you're trying to solve? And so it's really top down. It's from the strategy level all the way down into the really like intricate design of the solution. And for us, that's value that we require ourselves to give to our teams, because we want to make sure that, at least on the AI side, presuming that they've picked a good problem and that they're the people to deliver that solution, that the AI is de-risked from the beginning. And so for us, that hands-on, getting right in there with them and really working side by side is how we know that, at least from that technology and strategy point of view, they're going to approach the market with something that's legitimate and worthwhile. So it's bespoke, even within, we do programming that's about AI and building an AI, but with every team, we just sit down and really work with them one-on-one.
We typically know the issue with a company during the due diligence process. Our due diligence process, most firms out there would try to have a very streamlined process, maybe like a 6 to 8 week, to be mindful of your time. I'll be honest, sometimes our due diligence process is about 2 years. It can be a while because banking is slow to change, and you gotta have, again, a strong gut here. But because it can take a while, we often know what that company's probably going to need, and we try to figure out, are we the right fit to help them solve that problem? Whether it's finding the right co-founder or technical expertise, or the business acumen side because they're lacking that in the founder. Maybe it's they need to find a better go-to-market strategy. We have all the relationships with different accelerators to figure out maybe their pricing model, because it's kind of out of whack and it's not registering with the customers that they're trying to focus on. We typically know what the issue is beforehand, and if it's not an easy fix by any means, but if we can at least assist in the process, that's where we start, right? That's day one. Now, with that said, there is a foundational piece, right? For us, we're going to have our investment due diligence done. We're going to do the vendor due diligence as well, as if we are the bank, like I said. So every bank, and I'm getting a little bit too far into fintech, and I'll pause after that, but every bank has a vendor due diligence breakdown that they're going to put every fintech through. No bank's unique in this approach because they're dictated by the same regulators. So if we do that work up front, I know that foundationally you're going to have 60% of the effort done to be moving forward with that bank. I'm going to need that day one, right? And if I'm getting resistance from that point of view, then that's fine. this is not going to be a good relationship. Let's just move on, right? That is probably the biggest thing. Sometimes the horse is fantastic being the product, but I don't get along with the jockey. So if that's the case, what are we doing? Right? Well, I'll move on. That's fine. So I think that's the biggest thing. Every VC is going to have a foundational piece to get ready, and if they're doing their job correctly, they're going to know what the first problem is to solve, and they're going to have the conversation with you beforehand, so you can relate and say, yes, I am signing on board. Right? When you sign the term sheet and you go through the due diligence process, you're saying, yes, I understand my issues, and I need your help. And if there's a disconnect there, then you need to find someone else.
Interesting. I'd like to pick up on something. So I went through a couple of, 5 of them actually, accelerators and incubators when I was a startup founder. So fun. But one of the funders that I got put me through, like, no joke, the most ridiculous due diligence process. And at some point I'm like, I don't know, halfway through the multi-hundred line spreadsheet of requests for things. I've never even heard of half of them, and I have no idea what this person has asked me for. And I write to the person, I say, I think I need a conversation to walk through this due diligence document with you because it's insane. And, he calls me up and I said, I'm wondering about this and this and this. And he's like, I'm going to stop you right there. First of all, you've made the first good step, which is that you called to ask me what in the hell this is. He said, I didn't actually really expect you to fill out every single line of this document, so here we are. I said, all right, let me go back and tell you what I think I should fill out in this diligence, given the stage we're at, and what I can show you and tell you about what we're doing and what we're doing, successfully and well, and where we have gaps, and let's take it from there. So I do think it's got to be a relationship with your investor, and that dialogue is the most important thing. And it may still not be a fit, by the way. Sorry about that. It may still not be a fit. And remember, it has to be a fit for you, not just for them. They're not selecting you. You're selecting each other. So anyway.
I think that's a really great point. Do your diligence on who you're working with. Call the other founders that have worked with them. Some of them are not great to work with. Some are amazing. Some meet their promises, some don't. Or maybe, look at your team and you need help with marketing, and this incubator accelerator, they, specialize with build help and, maybe do less on the marketing side versus, one that's marketing specific. So do your diligence. And I think Beth made a great point. You're picking each other. I know it feels like you're being interviewed and you're trying to convince them, but don't let that power dynamic of they have the money to give you be a reason why you take their money because you feel like, oh, I've been chosen. You need to choose them as well, and it needs to be a fit. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time.
You have the value, they have the money.
Okay, so we're going to have a last question before we open it up for audience Q&A. So tell us why a startup should be building in Boston and not Silicon Valley.
Oh, boy.
Greatest city in the world. What are you talking about? My team there's 3 words that my team describes me at, which is offensively New England. Like this is easily the innovation hub for every industry that really makes impacts. Let's be honest, right? Education, healthcare, biopharm, biotech, government, fintech, all the things that what's that?
Robotics.
Robotics, thank you. Yeah, continue, everyone else. We are the shining city on the hill, right? We are the hub of democracy. We started this country. Like, we should be at the forefront of every single movement, clearly. And if you look at all the different resources you have around you, sometimes it's hard to find. I understand. But that's because some people are afraid to ask. Similar to what you were saying around, like, ask your VCs for help. Ask around. You're in the great starting point. Right? This is the central hub to get started to figure out where those resources are. Right? And they're all over the place. Every single neighborhood. You trip and you fall into something that's innovative here in this city. And so just continue on the same track. I get to travel all over this country. I see different innovation hubs, right? You go to Atlanta, you go to Austin, Chicago, San Francisco. There's really none that can compare in terms of the community that's built around all parts of innovation here. I mean, last year at this event, we had Secretary Howe from the Capitol over here discuss what the city is doing around innovation, right? I've gone to all these different events all over the country. They don't get that buy-in from the top. So that's how it's a waterfall effect, but it's not just top down. It's middle out, it's bottom up, it's all over the place. So you're in the right place to at least get started.
No
I would
better
say-
resource than Startup Boston Week.
That's right.
I was like, where is that voice coming from? Okay, sorry. That's not a person on the panel. I was just going to add to that. The talent is unbelievable here. It just ends with talent. Talent in every corner, every discipline, et cetera. And so that stems from education, right? These universities are top in the world, and they just produce an incredible variety of different kinds of talent. And then you add to that all the people who've chosen to invest in and build here, and you put that into the ecosystem of mentors and advisors and business builders and business leaders who want to work actively with all of that talent coming out of university. You have a perfect storm of innovation and entrepreneurship. And I would say the one thing that I experience is that money can sometimes be very hard to raise here, but you should build here. No question about it. This is the place to build. You can spit in any direction and hit a person who has some skill that they can add to your venture and help you get to where you need to go. So this is the talent capital of the world. No question.
We joke that you should build in Boston because you get to be a Boston sports fan. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the talent. It's not even close. I mean, you can't find we have the most educated square mile in Cambridge in the world. You have industry experts across every field and their proteges building. And I also think there's something to be said versus a Silicon Valley or, I used to live in New York and be in the venture world there. This is it feels like a small town, but it has a big punch. So there's plenty of capital, resources, everything you need here. But also it's small enough where everyone has to work together and you don't really get lost. And, you don't have people backstabbing and cutting each other's throats like you do in some of these bigger cities, because you can't do that here. It's too small of an ecosystem, and to that point, everyone works together. So I think it's the community and the talent that makes this, I think, the best ecosystem in the US at least.
Awesome. And with that, we're going to open it up for audience questions.
That was easy.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the great panel. I know you all have different models for this, but for the mentors, advisors, experts that you pair with your portfolio companies, where are you finding these folks and what are you looking for? What makes sort of a good mentor or good expert to pair with your portfolio?
I'll take the mentor question, at least in our model. First and foremost, we're looking for people who are experts in their domain. Because we're sector agnostic, it means that we really have to have a good match for the entrepreneur, for the founder in that domain, and so we actually spend a lot of time sourcing mentors. It's probably one of the most primary activities that we engage in, because we're so committed to making sure that mentor and founder match is an excellent one. The second thing we look for is experience with AI. It can often be really disruptive to a founder who's trying to build an AI-first applied AI company to get sort of contradictory advice from somebody who's more dyed-in-the-wool traditionalist in that industry. Sometimes it can work, but often it doesn't. And then the third thing we're looking for is somebody who has at least a little bit of startup experience. It doesn't have to be that they started a company themselves, but advisor or experience working with other startups is really important. So we look for those three factors, and we got no problem finding people, to be honest with you, because there's such an incredible environment of people here. But we do spend a lot of time at it.
I think our model's a little bit more direct because of the relationship we have between the companies we invest in and the investors that we have. And so our mentors are really the champions of innovation within these legacy institutions that can help drive change, or at least plant the bug into other people in the industry. The way we look at it is there's kind of three levels of influence. There's the founder, which you're going to take everything they say with a grain of salt, right? Because they're going to be promising everything. Then there's maybe someone who sits in the middle, like myself, right? That kind of has a foot in both camps. You might say, okay, I'll listen to Brandon a little bit, but I'm still a little taken aback. But you will listen to an industry peer, right? Another institution, another person at another organization of the same tier as you will listen to them and what they're doing, what's different about them, and who they're using, or some of the solutions and founders that they're talking to. So for us, if we can get one person within financial services to be that mentor to a fintech founder, and maybe their institution is that first customer, that will have major ripple effects within the industry.
I think we're really lucky just because of the size of our organization and our network that a lot of it comes inbound from referrals. So that's really where we get most of them. But I think the key is obviously you're an expert in something, whatever your area of expertise is. But more so, what we really look for and our best mentors have is, they want to give first and are not asking for stuff in return. There's plenty of people that sign up, and it's often a lot of consultants that want to get your business later, but it's the ones that just genuinely want to help because they've been there, or they think what you're doing is cool, or they like you as a person, whatever it is, because those are the ones that continue to work with you beyond the program, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to help you because they want to help, not some alternative motives there. So those are our best mentors, and I think we do a good job of it because it comes sourced through the network, and everyone knows that's really our standard and bar for a mentor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just a quick question on how you support portfolio companies with on the legal side with legal services so that they get good advice, but also keep their burn low for legal expense.
Yeah, we really do encourage people to use resources that are available already. We have a lot of templates. I know that Techstars has tons and tons of templates that they use with their teams. And, this is the age of generative AI, and there's a lot of support that can be had from the beginning using off-the-shelf tools that don't cost very much That said, we do have legal team to help support with more complex arrangements. And it's a really key feature of supporting teams because you can get into trouble very easily from the beginning if those contracts give away too much or aren't sensitive to data, privacy, any kind of other legality. So we're careworn about that and really advise our teams to use us as a backstop when they're putting out legal paperwork.
I would say, yeah, similar. We have in-house legal, but it's not like where our legal is your legal team. It's more complex situations, but we definitely work with a bunch of really great lawyers that are startup friendly. And so they give really great deals to companies that don't have much revenue and can defer. And, it's similar to the banking and, work with someone that provides value, but also don't go with the really cheap lawyer. Like there's nothing more expensive than cheap. You're going to pay for it. So like go with a good firm, good lawyer, someone that comes well recommended, pay the extra money. You'll save money in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, by the time they're talking to our team, they usually have counsel or they already have a team in place. But during my accelerator days, I did appreciate the firms that would make the effort to come down and consult with the startups, kind of talk through certain inflection points that they were having. Not necessarily pure legal advice, but just mentoring, candidly. So I think that resonates. Some of the best mentors, candidly, in this region were ones that came to the DCU Center. And probably came to your two establishments as well. And so that would be the best starting point, I think, for most companies, honestly.
You were my eyes. Who did you
Oh, somebody in the back of the room had a question, this gal with the white shirt. Sorry. I just happened to see her.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, thank you guys so much. I work in the angel investing space, so similar to VC, but not quite. And what we've seen is that strategic partnerships are like hugely important. You guys talked about that a little bit. So similar to the mentoring question, how do you go about connecting startups, finding kind of strategic partners for them, potentially even strategic investors?
Honestly, they often find us. There's a lot of eyes on Boston, and particularly if part of your mission is to connect talent to industry, which I think all of ours is, they'll find us and ask if we have, companies that are in any particular domain, because they're looking, as I mentioned before, they're trying to solve a problem and they're trying to find solutions that they can't just build themselves, and they know the limits of their own ability to be innovative. So our sourcing is pretty organic at times, depending on the industry. That said, we do go on trade missions and do some other work to activate ecosystems outside of Boston and to bring Boston talent into those ecosystems to expand potential exposure to new opportunities. So we definitely do both, but often it's through inbound.
Yeah, I would agree. It is mostly inbound, honestly. If you're with a good accelerator network or VC funds or whatever it is that has built a reputation around what they do, other people will find them.
Yeah.
Which is weird because you'll have those calls or those coffee meetings with them, and it's like kind of two middle schoolers at a dance. You're like, "What are you doing? I don't know. What are you looking at?" Yeah. And so it's this weird kind of feeling out situation where, do I want to put one of my companies in front of you? Because I'm risking my reputation in a way. And so there's a lot of that kind of back and forth. And over time, it winds up working out where you have this, every person on this panel or people that you're talking about would have that short list of firms or people that they trust and they know they do right by the founders.
Yeah, I'll echo what they said. I mean, definitely a lot of inbound, but I think the key is, all of these big organizations, whoever it is, they want the best tech, they want the best talent, they want the best solutions. And so we are kind of lucky where it comes inbound, but we also do get to gatekeep a little bit in terms of, you can't treat these startups poorly or take advantage of them. Like, we definitely do a lot of vetting and talk to the startups a lot, the initial ones that, we kind of pilot with them, just because it is so important to have, especially if it's a huge organization, for them not to be taking advantage of this small little company. And so, yeah, it's definitely a lot of trust. And as you build that trust, like we have our favorite, you know, corporations, lawyers, bankers that we work with, because we know that they're really founder and startup friendly, and they are going to always get preferential treatment to, you know, the other folks.
Hi, I'm Kevin. Thank you for your time. I was wondering, do any of you have experiences or thoughts on impact investing?
I mean, we certainly do have some startups that come through our programs that are more eligible for impact investing. And so we do have to cultivate a network of people who are looking for health or education or some environment, stuff like that. And, we're not impact investors per se ourselves, although our pillars do include health and med tech and those kinds of domains. But that's all through referral and partnership. And like any referral, we have to make sure that we can trust the person on the other end of that referral to treat the startup right. But impact investing is different. It has different metrics for success. And there's huge communities of people who get together to talk about how to do impact investing the right way. I'm not an expert at all.
The banking industry, they do have this thing called CRA. If anyone's familiar with that, it's Community Reinvestment Act. There is a mandate that every community bank and credit union, for that matter, should be giving back to their community in some way. It's not necessarily impact investing per se, but there are solutions that we come across that can make major impact to their local communities, and it could be to help minority-owned businesses or female-led initiatives or for environmental impact or whatever it might be. And there might be an ROI tied to that somehow, but most of the time it's because there is a responsibility of these institutions to be the one to help hold the community together. So it's a little bit of derivative of that, not necessarily exactly impact investing.
I think impact investing it has a bunch of definitions and can encompass a lot of different things and mean different things to different people. So I think in my mind, there's kind of two. There's one that's like a philanthropic organization that will invest directly, but is not directly tied to an ROI. And then there's those that invest in impactful areas, but they're bottom line driven. And for example, I used to work at a multifamily office. We had diversity focused funds for underrepresented founders. That was, an impactful category. But at the end of the day, it's tied to an underlying thesis that underrepresented founders overperform and return better. So I think there's that's more philanthropic, and those that are just in impactful areas. But at the end of the day, if you're bottom line driven, there's an underlying reason why you're investing in that kind of category. And so I feel like there's two areas there.
Oh,
That went fast. I know.
stickler. Okay.
Thank you all so much. Big round of applause for our speakers. Thank you, Trisha, Steve, Brandon, Beth.
Well done.
You guys are great. I love the energy. This week is certainly not over yet. We still have a lot more in store for you today, including tonight's closing party, as well as the startup showcase happening at 6:30. Again, super prompt. Right here, though, at Suffolk University. I know there are a lot of questions we didn't get to in the room. We want you to mingle. We want you to make those connections, build those bridges. We highly encourage it. My only ask is that you don't do it in this room. Don't make me put my Stern hat on. Even if your next session is in here, I just kindly ask that you pop out, let me reset the room, recheck in with the registration desk before re-entering. Virtual attendees and audience, you don't need to go anywhere. Just choose your next session on the schedule and we'll be back. Last but certainly not least, we have the wonderful Kevin Ty from 3 Circles Studios as our official event photographer. So grab him for a photo, and if you have not already, come see me so you can scan this QR code and you will get your own personalized Startup Boston Week photo album that you can look back on all year, update your shots. on LinkedIn, etc. Let everybody know that you are here. Again, best resources available in Boston, a lot of which can be found not just in this room, but throughout the sessions of this week. So come and see me if you want to scan the QR code. Again, thank you so much to our wonderful panelists and our fabulous moderator. And we'll see you at the next session. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Great job. That was fun. Time flies.
Hi. I'm Brandon.
Hi.
I'm Brandon.
So I have to run. I have a meeting.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Al. Good to see you.
Grab me on LinkedIn.